All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Pontificators. We are live. So we got Comic Book Bob, we have Joe M. Suntag, and we have the freelancer. Doesn't mean free.
Oh,
Todd Mulrooney. Yeah. Todd goes for the biggest bucks. People don't realize that, but Todd may be the highest paid freelance artist in comic books right now.
oh,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Reaction.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So what we're going to do today or tonight, we're going to talk about just gender swap, race swap, and I thought it'd be fun just to do like a laundry list, just to see how many characters we could come up with, like say in the last 5 or 6 years. And you guys in the chat, chime in, man. Just throw them out there, and we'll talk about them. Some we might go into more detail. Some of them not so much. So just like your favorite action heroes, like film, TV, even novels, anything, because I do believe this trend is out of control, and it should be just about at its end, I would think, unless Hollywood is completely bankrupt and entertainment in general is completely bankrupt and have no new ideas.
That's
But
for sure.
yeah, but before we start, I gotta share some cool killer black and white news. We got some cool stuff. We are just days away from ending the first 30. And so here it is, baby. This is Black and White Volume 2, Man versus Man versus the Machine. And this is the reason for the season. So let's play this video. Sometimes, you know what? Pictures say it all. Let me do this. Here we go. All right.
From RT there.
Who?
Comes the exciting conclusion to the Black and White origin saga. 60 pages of Hulk pounding action. In a world where law and order are often blurred to gray. Justice can only be black and white.
Yes, back it now. And the big news, the big news is, let me scroll down. We have the incredible Joe Bennett. Yes, Marvel DC's own Joe Bennett. He's been doing comics for quite a while. I've worked with this gentleman. Amazing talent. And guess what? He did a black and white cover for us, and it came out amazing. And I posted this in the Comicsgate green room, and Kyle Ritter said, "I want to color it." He just volunteered. He goes, "I got to color this thing." And so we got Kyle Ritter to do colors, and I am going to be doing inking. I'm going to be inking this sucker on a live stream as soon as I figure out how to print this thing up in blue lines. I got Zach, one of our own professionals, not professional, I'm sorry, pontificators, coming over tomorrow, and he's going to help me out with trying to figure out how to blue line this thing, and then I'll be inking it up on a live stream. So yes, you guys, we got Joe Bennett, the fantastic Joe Bennett, and I don't know if you heard his story, but Marvel kind of treated him pretty much. And so I was just commiserating with the gentleman and just saying how much it sucks, and that Marvel pretty much did the same thing to me. And so this cover just kind of came up, and he volunteered it and said, "I'll do it." And so he goes, "What do you want?" I go, "Just black and white fighting robots." And so that's exactly what I got. So yeah, this thing looks killer.
It even looks like Joe went back to his older,
I
more
was gonna say that.
image looking style. Like his Hulk is different. It was a lot of sweeping long lines that came off of the blacks. A lot of feathering that were really long. This looks like older Joe.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Bob. Was that you, Bob?
No, that wasn't me.
Oh, we're gonna say something, Joe?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I was
Well,
waiting.
yeah, I was talking to Joe, and he goes, "Well, you want the is it the Immortal Hulk? What is it? What was his series?
Immortal Hulk.
Immortal Hulk. Yeah.
Immortal Hulk, yeah." And he goes, "You want that style?" And I said, "I really dig that style. I think it looks great." I said, "But I want to go back to when we worked with each other on the New 52, Deathstroke, the Terminator." I said, "I dug that style," and he was kind of doing more breakdowns, and I was doing finishes. And I said, I kind of wanted to be that hybrid of the two of us again. And he said that would be great. So yeah, it's amazing that you picked up on that, Todd. That's kind of what it is. Yeah, it's more of a retro Joe Bennett style, and it's more like simplified. But I'm going to go in here and just like I did with Savage Hawkman that he and I did, and Deathstroke the Terminator. I'm going to go in here and just kind of T-bear the hell out of it. So it's gonna be a cool like combination, like we did on those books. So we have this as its own tier, and we also have it as an add-on. So yeah, you guys, let me go up. We are 3 days. Oh my gosh, we're only 3 days away from the first month ending, and we will be rolling this over into a second 30. So we are going to do a 30-30 campaign here. And when we go into the second 30, my wife Pamela and I, she works with me on all this stuff, and we are going to bring out like all kinds of exclusives for the second 30. And also we're bringing back the 72-hour line variant, which you guys have been asking about. So yeah, it's gonna be cool. So we're gonna look at it like we're kind of relaunching the campaign. So I think that's gonna be Saturday or Sunday. So we'll probably put that stuff up Sunday. I think Saturday is the last day. Is that right? So today is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, yeah. So you guys, link is in the description. Come by, check it out, and let me hit this.
I have a Joe question for you.
Oh, okay, cool.
Did you happen to ask him, was he already headed to the next book and all of this started to come at him?
These are great questions. Yeah, I just want to real quick go back. I just refreshed. We got a backer, so thank you guys.
Oh, nice.
Let me go back to the stream here. Oh, just in time. Let me get this super chat too, Todd, and then I'll answer your question. Heading into back the jam, but just wanted to make sure I'm correct on fulfillment period. Was it 6 months from now? 18 months. It's 18 months, and I know you guys have kind of brought this up a little bit, and the reason I'm doing this is the last two campaigns that I've done, well, actually the last three, have fulfilled after the time that we've given on the campaign. So I just wanted to make sure that maybe I could do it the opposite. So I'll give the bigger window for the deadline, and then if I'm hoping to have it done sooner than that, and then you guys won't be going, hey, where's the book? So I kind of wanted to overshoot the deadline, and then just kind of work my ass off to try to fulfill it before that. So that's kind of the mindset there. And my wife, Pamela, she's way wiser than I. And she goes, we need to do this because there's so much pressure when you start going over the time that you originally put on the campaign. And then it's not just the artwork, you guys. Sometimes it's production. Sometimes it's the vendors you're working with and the printer. And when we did Chrono, it was the middle of the China outbreak, and we had our printer all lined up in China. And then we were like, absolutely not. We're going domestic, and we're going to stay domestic as well. We're going to stay in the United States for all of our printing needs. And so it was just scrambling to try to find a different printer. So I just wanted to kind of safeguard that. So that's why there's that wiggle room there. So just know, ring shippers, that I am going to try my damnedest to get it done before that time. And thank you so very much for the $5 super chat. So what was the question again, Todd, about Joe?
Yeah, because I know 50 was his last. He's probably already have drawn it because they were on 48 when all this happened. So was he already headed to a different book? And then all this negativity started to come his way.
Well, what happened is he was headed for another book when Al Ewing or whatever started his hissy fit and became a bitch about everything. And I don't care, man. I've said it before. Al, come on this show. I'd love to hear your side of the story. I'd love to see how you could defend yourself destroying a man like Joe Bennett. Joe Bennett is a saint. I'm sorry, man. He just is. And so, yeah, I think when all that happened, that run on Hulk was done. So you're right there. And then there was another either series or one shot that Joe was offered. So after Al, started all his crap, Marvel decided to virtue signal and pull all the books that they had moving forward with Joe away from him. Basically what they did to me, like, you're not going to work at Marvel again. So they pretty much just
Crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And so, yeah, Joe is pretty much without not just income in the here and now, but future income as well at Marvel.
Shouldn't we boycott Al Ewing books?
Oh yeah, like,
Because
I mean,
he's not even that good.
Yeah, and here's the thing: anybody that's actually seen that picture that supposedly started this whole thing, the fact that if you see racism in that picture, that says more about you than it does about him.
yeah,
Right.
Because every person that's depicted in that picture is Brazilian. Okay, they're part of the they're politicians down there. And if you saw, and supposedly the big thing is that it's anti-Semitic. So if you look at that picture and you see one of those characters as being an anti-Semitic depiction, that means that your interpretation of those people matches that description. So that says more about you than it does about him.
And from my understanding, the guy that's on the back of the horse and he's chopping the guys up, it's pretty much like that he is the guy that at least in Joe's cartooning in his mind is the guy that's bringing Brazil back to its greatness, and he's getting rid of all of his political
Corruption.
The rats.
Yeah.
Competition, not Jewish people, but his political. And so, yeah, he drew them in not so favorable look. But hey,
Political satire.
exactly.
It's been going on for forever.
The same people
And it's
that
always been, political cartoonists have always been sort of non-touched in this way, because you the ebb and flow of usually the topic, right? You might hang Trump from news and stuff. You know what I mean? The Republicans don't go after the cartoonist for the dumb thing that Trump says that the cartoonist reacts to.
Right.
It's always been just the sort of gig that it is.
Well, just think about what Marvel, the big hypocrites they are. The political cartooning they did within their own books against Donald Trump.
But yeah, they showed what's her name took pictures of herself with his decapitated head, and they were okay with that.
Yeah.
And one of their execs was a huge gave money to Donald Trump's campaign, and that came out, and they didn't take any blowback.
Yeah.
When that came out, they didn't fire the guy either.
Yeah.
But it just got found out that someone let it out that, hey, one of your execs, one of your bigwigs, is a supporter of Trump's campaign.
And I think like what actually just knowing, and I remember hearing about this with the Nixon, the Watergate tapes when that went public, that there was all kinds of stuff that was coming out, not just about the trial, but just in general, that there were just as many corporations that were backing, the right as were backing the left. These guys just, it's basically creating a win-win scenario for them. So if we're going to get if Marvel's going to get all hot and bothered about like, oh, you're supporting Republicans or conservatives, like you said, Todd, one of the highest, who is he? I forget what his name is. Perlmutter. What is the guy?
Perlmutter?
Yeah, that's the guy I think you're talking about, right, Todd? Ike Perlmutter or Motter or whatever his name is. Yeah, they found out that guy was a big Trump supporter. So, I mean, come on, you guys.
It's because people lost their damn minds in 2017. It's just there was something weird that happened, and everyone just went insane at one time, and it's just continued. I mean, maybe it's gotten a little better. I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like it's getting better, and then all of a sudden something like this happens when it's like, nope, it's not.
Yeah.
Double standards are all around for the most part. You know, unfortunately, if you are a conservative or Republican, in most media these days, you're going to be somewhat demonized for opinions that you hold. That's just the way it's going to be. I don't know that until somebody else gets a hold of running the media and owning certain companies, because most of the stuff is owned by the left or leftists, you know, liberals. So unfortunately, it's a one-way street when it goes to that. So
yeah, they have the stronger voice because they have media, they have news, they have TV, they have radio. Yeah, they have most of the outlets. But I do believe, just from like a more positive note, I do think they always call it the silent majority. I think they're getting up off their butts and they're starting to make their viewpoints known. And that's going to be what's going to turn the tide. I do believe is when those people are just like, COVID, I've had enough. Just this contradiction from our politicians constantly about COVID news. We've had enough, you know, and I think there's just going to be a major pushback, you know, that's going to happen. And I do think it's probably going to be because of COVID. I think that's probably going to be the icebreaker there.
You've seen the riots that have been happening in Australia, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah, they're in like a totalitarian lockdown, and the people are like they've had enough.
Yeah. And it started with the guns, man. I can't believe that Australia gave up their guns so easily. It's like, I'm sorry, anybody that thinks guns are the big bad and they're the root of all evil. They are not. They are the liberators. They are the reason we are free. You guys have it completely ass backwards.
Yeah.
If you come up to somebody, they have no way to defend themselves. You can do anything you want to that person. You give that person a way to defend themselves. The weak women, you know, all you have to do is do this. You know what I mean? You point and you shoot. And all of a sudden, it's the great equalizer in the world. You know, you can be a weak person, you know, and you can take down, you know, somebody you can overpower you. Oh, that was weird, dude. It looked like Joe passed the soda over to Todd. I thought I would just, like, you know how you catch things up the side of your eye, you know, it's like
Perfect.
peripheral. Yeah, and I'm like, oh,
yeah, man,
that was funny. So we live in a really interesting time. I say it to my wife just because I don't want to go, we live in a really effed up time. I say we live in a really interesting time right now. Yeah.
The other one works too.
What's that?
I said the other one works too.
Yeah.
It's a really effed up time.
It's an effed up time. Yeah. So do you guys have anything else to add with the Joe Bennett stuff? I do have a little bit of maybe speculation, a little bit of insight on conversation I've had with him, but I want to see what you guys think too.
Well, considering that I'm pretty sure he was in the middle of working on the next phase of the Hulk story, because the issue 50 was the end of the current storyline, but they were going into another one.
Oh, okay.
So I'm pretty sure he was on board for that because the first book was so successful. I don't see any reason why they would change the art team. But the fact that he got thrown under a bus like that is just like man.
I don't even understand it, because he's such an asset. Like, if you have an artist on that level, like, why would
they don't care about good art anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like those days seem to be long gone when it comes to that. Like, you could be a great artist and it doesn't matter. They'll cancel you. And I think it's just one more example that no matter who you are or what talent you are, that you can be canceled and kicked out of the mainstream. So why continue to sit there and spin your wheels when, you could do something on your own, make a lot more money in something like Comicsgate or just, independent books alone, instead of sitting at Marvel and DC and waiting for somebody to pick out an old tweet or something that you did on social media years ago and then crucify you for it,
Yeah.
So Joe, why do you think they're doing this? I mean, it's obviously a power play, but do you think that there's anything more to it? Just destroying the freelancer community so that they have no self-esteem to rise and become the next Image Comics? Like, what do you think is going on?
I think it's just a matter of power.
Yeah, I was just say I've often thought that, like you keeping the power from the time that there was the pushback against the artists by the writers and how the writers kind of took back the industry. I think the artists have been being held down, and I think if you see any kind of success going on in the indies, whether it's Comicsgate or just in general, it's stuff that they can't control. They can't police it. I mean, the most they can do is try to push back on it as hard as possible by calling something, racist, or the person's a bigot or whatever that's making it to try to hurt their product. But they have no control over somebody that's doing their own thing. I think the biggest thing that you're seeing right now at Comicsgate, and you see a lot of the names have been coming over the last year, 2 years. I think one, it's poking a hole in a lot of the narrative. And so I think you're seeing a ramp up right now. I'm seeing it more on Twitter with people like attacking Comicsgate, attacking the creators that are here. I think they're trying to double down right now because I think the facade is falling a little bit. When you got guys, like Joe Bennett just coming over here and doing a cover for you got Dale Keown, a huge name in the industry coming over and working with Ethan, and then you see the amount of success that Comicsgate in general is having for indie creators. And you see the blowback right now. I think it's like a animal trapped in the corner. I think they sense that they're losing control a little bit and they're doubling down to try to get it back. And they're becoming a lot more fierce right now. So
they have to protect themselves because over here, we don't have the groomers and pedophiles and the really bad news. The really bad news that's coming out of the mainstream industry is happening over here. Right? You don't have those people doing that. So they have to protect what they have, or else it could crumble any day.
Yeah, and and once they lose that control, that's it.
Yeah, my favorite story that came out of like what Joe was talking about, people coming over, the Del Keown's was the Jay Lee, Cyberfrog cover, and I'll tell you, Jay Lee handled it so well that he did not cower, he did not back down, he stood his ground, and he gave them nothing. And on top of that, he had a human interest story, which is so SJW, where he was like, our dog was passing away, and you guys were here on Twitter, trying to cancel me and destroy me. What kind of animals, what kind of savages are you? You have no heart. All the time while you're disguising yourself as somebody who has heart. You're virtuous. Well, where's the virtue? Where's the heart? Where's that?
It's never been that.
Took an assignment, just like he's always done his entire career. He worked for Marvel, DC, Image. He worked for anybody. He worked for Dynamite. He's a freelance artist. That's his prerogative. That's how he feeds himself and his family. And that's all he was doing. He took an assignment, and you guys were like, ooh, Cyberfrog,
right?
With Nazis and alt-right and Islamophobes and all this crazy stuff. Like, what kind of imaginary world do you live in, man?
Well, it's always for them. It's always been about one of two things. It's about using the comic book industry to stepping stone to get to where they want, and then the other motivation was laying claim to something. You know what I mean? It was like laying, like, it's not about making the industry better. It's not about making the industry successful. It's about putting their fingerprints on something and laying claim to it. Because once they lay claim to it, it's theirs. And if you try to like for instance, the whole Black Superman thing. If they made a Black Superman movie, regardless of whether it was successful or not, if you tried to then go back, they would be like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, well, let's get into that, because that's also what we were going to talk about, is like gender and race swapping in a lot of the different things that we love. Film. Mostly, it seems like it's masculine males that they're like rebranding and taking away. I mean, I just heard recently that they may be trying to gender swap Indiana Jones now.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I went through and I was looking at a list of all the characters that have either been gender swapped or race swapped, or all that stuff, or tokenized versions of them were made. And I have there's a video that Young Rip had put out called "Tokenism and Tokenization Explained," and why these things are not good. And I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat for everybody to check out, because he explains it infinitely better than I ever could.
But give us a highlight. Yeah.
Basically, it's it's lazy. It's the argument that they have is that they have to do this with characters because new characters or old characters that they try to promote, people just aren't interested in, and there's no way that they'll be successful. But that argument is hollow, because the reason why, because we know that's not true. It's a matter of they don't want to put the time in and the effort to make these characters interesting, and give them the time to actually develop and find their audience.
They also want to take a chance either. Like you said, it's lazy.
And they don't want to take it, and they don't want to take a chance, because that's what, if you think about it, that's why these characters that have stood the test of time, that's why they are who they are today. Your Supermans, your Batmans, your Spider-Mans, because they've put so much time into these characters and built them up that they've become timeless. The minute you start messing with that formula, you break that, and that's how you end up destroying these franchises.
Yeah, I thought, case in point, like, the new Ghostbusters, with all female cast, it's like, yeah, you're going right out of your way to just destroy what you own. Like, it's so counterproductive. Or like Star Wars, Disney buys Star Wars and then completely ignores what they just bought. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Like Luke, Princess Leia, Han Solo, Vader, like these are what people want. This is what Star Wars is. And then they don't even have a scene with the three principal characters in the Millennium Falcon together. If any one of us got that writing assignment, that would be the first thing we go like, how are we going to get these three characters together, right? That would be the most fun of writing the story and to trying to create this thing. And yet it never even happened. There were 3 movies,
But
go ahead.
I was going to say that kind of plays into a point I was going to make, is that a lot of these people are just so out of touch with the majority of fans, probably the majority of the world / country, when it comes to entertainment in general, is they are insulated, or whatever the word is, in their own little community. And so you have all these white knighters and all the virtual signals that are going on, and they think that that's the majority of the consensus. So they're playing to each other. They're writing stuff for each other to get the slaps on the backs, to get the praise on Twitter and all that stuff. And then when it hits the mainstream, and when I say mainstream, I mean like the fans of everything, they get the pushback about not wanting to see 4 female Ghostbusters, not because they're female, but because you have such diehard fan base that was so looking forward to seeing those original characters come back, or something played off of that. And they, in their infinite wisdom, decided like, hey, we're gonna completely reboot it or remake it, and we're gonna do it completely different. And if you don't like it, we're gonna attack you. And that's exactly what they did. And they're like, well, you don't like it because it's women. Like, no, we don't like it because as a fan base, we wanted to see Ray and Egon and Peter come back. That's what we wanted to see. And now you're giving us an inferior version of what we wanted. So we're not going to be happy about it. But yeah, then we're sexist, or we're scared of women. I always hated that when people say, oh, they're just scared of women having strong female characters. And like, motherfucker, I grew up on the strong female characters in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, just name them off. It's insane.
Ripley.
Yeah,
exactly. Ripley, Sarah Connor. I mean, they're just all out there. Like, nobody's got a problem with that. But you have a problem with a series that people love. That's the issue.
And the other thing too,
but there is another issue. It's the hitting you in the head with it. With, we need to do this. We're going to
Right.
do this when we need to do this because we need to feel good about ourselves. Because it's not like it hasn't worked, right? Will Smith played two white characters from comic books. I'm
True.
talking about.
True.
You know, he played two, and I can't see them any other way without him.
Good point. Great point.
And I Am Legend is not the best graphic novel, but movie, it's a really good movie. Granted, there's some screw ups that they made that they could have continued this thing and it could have been a franchise. But MIB, I can't see it any other way.
Absolutely. Yep. I agree with you.
And the other thing too is that
I think the difference is, I always say this: if it's just done matter of factly, just don't make it the selling point. That's
Right.
that's the mistake that they do. Not that it can't work. It's just the way you're doing it. It's like what Joe was saying with Ghostbusters. You took this big chance. You knew on some level they had to have known they did not have a hit. You have to know, like when you're creating something, you have to go, this isn't working, right? And so no slight to the actresses, no slight to any of that stuff. They could only work with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
But it was clearly never going to work. Not that it couldn't work, but it wasn't going to work with that group of people. So you move forward with it, and then the difference between then and now is they wouldn't just go, okay, it didn't work, let's move on. They go, hey, the reason it didn't work is because of you.
Yeah.
And that's
the guy who loves Ghostbusters, you're the problem. It's like, holy shit, when did that
Man babies.
It's also a level of narcissism, because the simple fact of the matter is that the female-led Ghostbusters movie is not a good movie.
No,
regardless of whether
it's just a bad movie in general.
It just sucked. It wasn't good. But again, this is something that is incredibly prevalent in Hollywood. Is it's not me, it's you. You know, I'm a visionary creator.
Right.
You know, obviously, you just didn't understand what I was trying to do. It's the same thing that happened with Rian Johnson in Star Wars. He went into that and he knew that he said, you know what, nothing I do is going to please these people. So I'm just going to go in a completely different direction. But then he took it a step further than that and said, and in fact, I'm going to burn the whole thing down because that's my visionary perspective.
Subverting the expectation.
Yes.
And
then when it came out and everybody was like, this is garbage, he was like, oh, well, obviously the problem is you. You just don't understand my visionary creativity. Right. And it's about these people that don't understand that the reason why these franchises, Star Wars, Star Trek, James Bond, the reason why these things have stood the test of time is because they've tapped into something and they've created a formula. And if you try to change that, you lose what has given them that longevity. Yeah. Same thing with comic book characters.
You can add new characters. You can do all that stuff. You know, like I wasn't opposed to Rey. I wasn't opposed to what were the other one? Poe
Finn and Poe.
Finn. Yeah. I thought the first J.J. Abrams was like, okay, it's not that original of a plot, but I do appreciate that they were trying to get the feel back.
It hit the nostalgia.
Yeah, like what a Star Wars film was like. Because I think George's prequels, they didn't really feel like Star Wars to me. I mean, there's some people that said it did, but to me, it didn't. But the J.J. Abrams first one was, I thought it felt that way. So I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt because I knew there was going to be 2 other movies. But the thing is, once you see, all 3 movies are done, once you look at them as a whole, you realize it's none of those things that they say it is. If you didn't even know that was Star Wars, let's just say it was rebranded as something else, they would still be 3 horrible movies. They don't work together. The story doesn't work. Like, it's just bad storytelling. It's bad execution. That's it.
Yeah, so, they had no plan for what they were doing, or if they did, they didn't follow it at all because it's just
it wasn't about creating the best movie or creating something that worked within the universe that was created that would help continue its longevity. It was about putting their mark on it, laying claim to it. That's what it's always been about, and that's the thing. Like the difference between what Todd was talking about, like with the movies with Will Smith. Their motivation was, we're trying to make the best movie we possibly can.
Yeah.
It's about who we have that's available in the talent pool. With these movies that are coming out, like the new Star Wars films, the new Star Trek films, the next James Bond film. It's not about that. It's about what can we do to push these perceptions of ours and leave our mark on these things. It's a level of, again, it's a level of narcissism that we are going to lay claim to this.
Yeah,
and that's when that's your primary motivation, the movie and this franchise are going to suffer.
And that's a great point, because back in the day, the reason why we never complained about strong female characters or black characters that are in the leads or anything that they say that we have issues with is because those movies were generally they were made to be as best they could make. There was whether they were good or not, somebody liked them, but there was passion to make a good movie. And when you write a character well, when you direct a movie well, and you try to tell a good story, the audience is going to relate to that. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, whatever, male or female. We're just going to look at it as an awesome movie, or we're going to get sucked into something that we can relate to, and then you're going to connect with that. Right. These movies today aren't that, because it's all about your gender or your sexuality or whatever. Like that's the number one thing. So the storytelling, the greatness of what cinema is, the greatness of what comic book storytelling is, character development is lost because they're only focusing on one thing. And again, it's the out of touch aspect of stuff, because they think maybe they're going to bring in a new audience or something. But the funny thing is, if they did any actual research, they would realize that these things that we love had a wide range of people that loved it too. It wasn't just like, a core, white males like this from age whatever to whatever. It's like, no, like everybody loved this stuff.
Yeah.
And so don't rewrite history and tell us that's not true. And now it's say like, well, we have to now make this a female character, or we have to switch this to a gay character or a black character because we need these audiences to come in. And it's like, well, you made everything else suffer just because you want a virtue signal or white knight to somebody. And the story's shit now.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like there have been instances like we talked about with Will Smith, where like either a race swap or gender swap or creating a quote unquote tokenized version of the character has actually worked because the creation of that character did not diminish or erase the original. A good example that would be Supergirl.
Exactly. Like I love
Batgirl.
Omega Man. I love Omega Man, which was based on the same story.
Right.
I still love that, but I don't think one like you said diminishes the other. I think you can enjoy both if, like Joe said, they're done well. If they're done well and they resonate and they connect with an audience, that's your primary goal.
Yeah, and it's obvious. And the other thing too is that it's obvious when their intention is not to do that. It's that's when we get angry and we say, no, you're just trying to diminish or change or take something away. For example, that would be what they like. She-Hulk originally was a great character, and she was obviously she was a tokenized version of the Hulk, but as time went on, she turned into a completely different kind of character. And then recently, in their bids to be quote unquote diverse, they literally took everything away from her that made her unique and different, and turned her into nothing but an analog of him. It's funny. It's the exact like what they did created the exact opposite of what they claimed they wanted. They literally turned her into a nothing more than a carbon copy of Bruce, right down to the psychosis.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, it's like we have to get past this too. It's like everybody thinks like to have a strong female, she has to be like a man.
Yeah, she's got to be masculine.
Right. Not only that, my wife is as strong as I am. Like we are equals in this relationship, and she kicks my ass, and at times, I do the same. Like I don't mean literally, I just mean like with points of view or just like clarity of thought and just how do we move forward on this, that, or the other thing. And so the thing is, I thought the best female character the Marvel Universe had was Pepper Potts. Like the first couple Iron Mans, she is just as strong as Tony Stark.
All right.
She actually has an arc too, where she's kind of superficial. She likes, the glamour of the movie openings or going to the gallery and all the art and all that stuff. So she's kind of taken by it as well. But she actually changes a little bit too. And then she, by seeing what Tony's doing, she steps it up and starts thinking, I got to back this guy. This guy is doing good. And in turn, I'm going to serve that. And then eventually, Tony just leaves Stark Enterprises and she takes over. That's not a strong, that is a strong kick-ass woman. And just to be able to match wits with Tony Stark, to be his equal, which she was in the stories, was fantastic. I thought, wow, this is a really refreshing hero. This is a great character. And then by the third one, they had to give her powers and she had to save herself.
She became insufferable.
Right. And then as soon as they did that, I was like, oh my gosh, you just destroyed this character that you created. You know, she was so awesome up to that point. And then they like, well, now she's the female Iron Man. Way to go. You know, what was special about the character that you created? It's not special anymore.
Yeah.
Well, she's like anybody else.
I was going to back up to a point when it just comes to, regardless if it's race swapping or if it's gender bending, whatever it's called. It's not so much that there's an issue with that, right? So I mean, like you said, if they cast Will Smith in a traditional white guy's role, I think most people, I mean, there's some people who just don't like Will Smith. I personally like Will Smith. So if he got cast in a white guy's role, I wouldn't care because I know he's a good actor. He's going to bring a lot to the character. It's probably going to be a well-written story. The problem is that nowadays when you're doing that and you do it specifically, if you take a traditional white character or whatever, you say like, it's too white, we need to, put a black character in there now, or we need to make it a female character. It's not just like, all right, the actor's different so that we can have a different feel. It's like, all right, the actor's different, but now they're going to deal with what we claim reality is. So if it's a black guy, all of a sudden now he's going to have to deal with being black in a white world and deal with racism. If it's a chick, she has to deal with being a woman in a man's world and dealing with a bunch of asshole men. If it's a gay person, they got to deal with, a bunch of people hating on their sexuality. It takes it completely away from what the story is and makes it all about what they are as opposed to what they're going through or what they the hero's journey, so to speak, or what they how they develop,
Right. The general overall relatability has been narrowed. Mm-hmm. So it's like not everybody can relate to this or that or the other thing. But if you write things in a bigger, more relatable way, then you can. So, I think it can be done. But, we were bringing up Will Smith. Will Smith did Wild Wild West. Mm-hmm. And that movie just did not work. I mean, if anybody's a fan of
this wasn't a good movie. It
was an okay movie. I liked everybody that was in the movie. I thought the casting was cool. I thought they at least gave a reason for Will Smith to be black. They put it in a historical context, but it wasn't because of the race swapping or any of that stuff. It was just a bad movie.
Right, yeah.
It was just a bad movie. So then you just judge it based on what you should. You pay your money to go see the movie and you're just like, it was okay. And then you move on. But nowadays, if you just go, it was okay, then, you're a horrible person because you didn't accept that it was a bad movie. And then they say, well, it's because you don't like black people.
Well, it goes down to, and it's an excuse for why they failed. It's victim culture, This movie didn't fail because not because it wasn't good or because what we were trying to do didn't connect with the audience and the people, or the fans of this original property just rejected it because it wasn't what it should have been. It's because I'm a victim. It's because because these people are evil and wrong. It's not. There's zero accountability for something's success. And again, that goes back into the narcissism argument. It's something that's been fed into them for the better part of 2-3 generations. That anything that they do is not there was any failure or any shortcoming is not their fault or due to anything that they've done. It's everybody else.
I think it's Todd's fault.
Everything's Todd's fault.
It's always Todd's fault. Yep.
But we have just as many. We could go all night with it can work and it can't work, or it doesn't work. And most of the time, like based on the past, it was because it was either a good movie or it was a bad movie. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with the gender swapping or the race, or any of those things. It was just because it was a bad movie. And I don't think anybody had a problem with that. When we watched Alien and Aliens, especially Aliens, Ripley just, oh my God, it transcended everything. She was her own character. She wasn't male, she wasn't female. She was fucking Ripley. You know what I mean? Like you didn't care at that point, And then there was that mother angle that always reminded you, and anchored her as like that she did have this maternal instinct, that she was still feminine, that she still was nurturing, and she still was all those things. But
absolutely,
she was just as strong as those military guys,
She was written in a way that you could connect with her, even if you were a man or a little boy. Like I was young when I saw that movie, but I loved the character Ripley. I didn't. It wasn't like one of those things where like, well, I can't get into this movie because I don't see myself reflected in the main character. It's just, it was a great movie. It was intense as a kid, and then Sigourney Weaver did such a great job. I mean, she really did a fantastic job in those movies, portraying exactly what you said, Art. She could be badass when she needed to be. She needed brave when she needed to be. And then she could also be very caring and enduring, when it came to Newt or whatever, when she needed to be. I mean, it was a well-written movie, that hit all the bases that connected the audience. And that's a perfect example.
And you can relate to it. So it's like this crazy ass storyline, but they were still human situations that happen. You protect the young, you protect your children, and then there was this, it was almost like Disney-esque without like, I mean, that's a fine line because there's this whole family dynamic that was going on. There was obviously Ripley and who was the Marine? What was his name?
Hicks. Yeah.
So there was obviously attraction there. There was this kid that was thrown into the mix. So your imagination just goes, oh, this is probably going to be a family at some point. They're gonna take the kid in and they're gonna raise her. Oh, go ahead.
Tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm the only one that thought like this. There aren't any other Sigourney Weaver movies where, to me, she looked sexy other than Aliens. I don't know what it is or why, but in Aliens movies, she always had sex appeal too. Yeah. And I know she's running around in her underwear for some of it, but
maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah, it could be.
But I can't think of any other movies where. And I know she's had some big parts in big movies and stuff like that, but I thought,
it's probably the character. It probably is the character, because I mean, she even looked good in 3 bald or like a shaved head, and I can't stand women. Not a lot of women can pull off a shaved head, and she looked pretty good with a shaved head.
Honestly, it's the strength of the character. That's like that's what a truly strong character is. Very attractive.
Something attractive about
Princess Leia is a good example of that. She's attractive, but she is what it is.
Yeah, it transcends the way they look. Like they're just attractive as their personalities or
Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. She was jacked in Terminator 2, and she's still which is at the time was considered kind of a masculine thing. When you had some big ass guns as a woman, a lot of people were talking about. But the fact that she was so strong, that was a complete turn on.
The major thing is people still remembered her from that TV show Beauty and the Beast, and she was she was just like a little sweetie pie. And even the first Terminator, she's just like a little cutie, right? And then you see her like in the second Terminator, and you're like, holy shit, she was like this little sweetie pie. Now
good storytelling, right?
Yeah,
actually, the events of the first movie changed her to the point where she was in the second movie. So you saw a growth in the character and dealing with the trauma or whatever it happened, and it forged her into the person she was in the second movie. And you could relate to her in the first movie as being like the victim, and then the second movie taking charge of her life, so to speak. It was a very good story arc for her character.
Yeah, so she wasn't so much becoming the man. She was just turning herself into something that she felt she needed to protect her son. She didn't even do it for her.
Yeah,
she did it for John Connor, and so that's still very maternal. That's still very, you look after your children, that type of thing. So those themes were still at play, but still very feminine.
Yeah.
It's weird because these things seem like they used to just be common knowledge, and then somehow the world just went, off this crazy train.
The impression of what a strong woman was is, it changed. It changed from being, what we talked about, like traditional the traditional values that were like super reinforced, to this modern, this really bad modern interpretation that strength, like that, basically being a complete piece of shit equals strength. Acting like the quote unquote the bad bitch.
Yeah, I hate. Yeah, and I hate that.
Yeah, and it's like,
absolutely hate it.
I'm sorry, I want to go back to what Paula says. Galaxy Quest. I have to school all of you guys. Sigourney Weaver was the hottest in Galaxy Quest.
She was hot in that.
There's a scene that was cut, but you see her with the open top. But there's a scene where she just full on just ripped.
I remember that scene was in the previews, or like they kind of hinted it to it in the previews, and then it never showed up in the movie. I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, she was awesome in that movie.
And still to this day, it's one of the best Star Trek movies ever made.
It is, yeah.
But there's also
I love that movie.
There's also the scene when they're going through that thing with all the traps and stuff are going down, where she says, "Well, screw that." If you look at her mouth, that's not what she says.
Yeah. It's real
she
obvious.
says, F that. So they had to go back and change it. So
yeah.
But
I thought some of the edits were good, to keep the charm of the movie going.
Yeah.
But I said it on a live stream. This is a little strained from the topic, but not necessarily. Is that how Hollywood likes to like virtue signal or create like victims or whatever. And I thought that the best sympathetic characters I've ever seen on screen was that alien race that hire Tim, was it Tool Time Taylor? What, I forget the actor's name.
Tim Allen, yeah.
Tim Allen. When they hire him and then the whole crew to basically fight for them. And I'll tell you, when that villain steps out and tries to just destroy those people, they're so freaking innocent. They don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand acting. They take everything at face value. And even though that exists, that villain, that race of aliens, they still didn't care. Like it's like kicking a dog or like hurting a child. Like they were completely innocent. And I've never seen that type of character on that level created before, because it makes them so sympathetic. It makes the hero seem that much better, because what they did is they kind of by example showed these guys what they have to do, to step up, and it shows how petty and horrible those villains were. Like that they were willing to like some of the stuff, they were opening airlocks, those people were being sucked out to space. Like there was some horrible stuff in that
they were
movie.
being genocide.
Yeah, and you completely feel for those people. And I thought that I'm sorry, I can't say enough good things about Galaxy Quest.
It's a great movie. It really is. Very underrated.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
But getting back to the comic book characters, the other thing about whenever they do the modern day, like there have been times when another character took over a role for at least for like a short time, and sometimes that's a good story. For instance, when Killmonger in the comics, when Killmonger beats Black Panther and takes the mantle from him, the story that was written by Christopher Priest, that the movie was loosely based on, that storyline in the comics is actually really interesting. It's way better than the story that was in the movie, because for instance, one of the things about Killmonger in the comics is he does this without powers. When he fights Black Panther in the comics, Black Panther still has his powers. Killmonger is just a normal human being, but he's such a badass and he's so motivated, he beats him. That's and just the way that story was told, and in the comics, the story is actually told from the perspective of the I can't remember the character's name right now, but the SHIELD agent that's that is in the movie. The entire story is told from his perspective. So it's, so you have a story like that where a character takes over for a while and then goes back, and then obviously it changes because even though technically the title of Black Panther is in the comic, in the history of it, it's a mantle. T'Challa was never meant to be replaced. And that's another thing with these characters. These characters were never created to be replaced. So this whole thing where they're like, oh, well, it's a mantle, and anybody, and that's the underlying story they're telling, is that anybody could become this character.
Yeah.
And that's like, no, when you do that, it's kind of like, I call it the syndrome, because it's just like it's the storyline from the movie The Incredibles. When everybody's super, nobody is. When anybody can be Spider-Man, being Spider-Man isn't special.
Yeah.
So that's great.
And that's something. It's nobody. Like why do we care about Peter Parker if anybody could be Spider-Man? Yeah, exactly. And there are some characters like the Phantom. There was legacy. That was
meant to be there though.
Right. It was built into the concept, so it worked. But yeah, they're shoehorning these ideas in there. And I think what they're trying to do, and we had Superman summits, right? And I remember being at one of these summits, and they were talking like, Superman doesn't sell. Superman's corny. He's not a contemporary character. Nobody really likes him. And I said, well, you want to bring cynicism. You want to bring that to Superman. I said, no, we shouldn't do that. I said, the world can be that, but Superman can never be that because he is the example. He's the guy that doesn't change. He doesn't falter. He's the one that inspires these other things to happen. So
that's why they're called. You can't make these characters into us, which is something that these modern writers
want to do.
They keep injecting themselves in these characters, but they don't realize that these characters aren't. They may embody elements of people in the human race, but they're not meant to be us because they're meant to be better than us. That's why they're super heroes. They're the pantheon.
They're not just heroes; they're superheroes.
Well, that was one of my biggest arguments when they did the future state, and they did what was it? Luke Fox became Batman in the future. It was just a way for them to make a black Batman because they wanted to have that, out there. But just like Henry Bemis said, they're not mantles, they're individual identities.
Right.
It's like I saw a lot of people celebrating the fact that hey, we finally got a black Batman, like all this kind of stuff is great. I'm like, all right, well, that's cool, but what made Batman? Was it just the costume and the name? There's so much more to Batman. There's so much more to Bruce. So to have somebody just take that mantle and just throw it on somebody else, so to speak, so that we can all relate and all have our chance to shine as Batman, made no sense because there was a reason Batman was Batman. There was a reason why Bruce did what he did, and besides that, Batman was the greatest detective. And he had all these things to his character that if you were throwing that mantle on somebody else. Now, I never read the Future State books. I don't know exactly what they did with that character. So I don't know what path they went down storytelling wise, but that was just like what popped in my mind. It's like, you can't just make somebody else Batman. Now in a storyline, when he gets his back broken and you want to put temporary somebody in there because it worked with the story. Dick Grayson becomes Batman. Azrael takes over the mantle for a while. It was good storytelling. It was part of it. You knew Bruce was coming back.
It made sense. There was a reason for it. It wasn't virtue signaling to get some kind of credit on Twitter or with some kind of SJW mob crowd.
And get this, when they revealed the costume for the first ever black Batman, they covered his entire face.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me.
Because here's the thing, man. They know this is not permanent. They're presenting this to people saying, "Hey, look, finally Batman's going to be black." And it's like, yeah, but the minute the sales start to flag, the minute they're going to go right back to Bruce Wayne. We know that, and that's why these, when they do these tokenized versions or these gender swapped or race swapped characters, we know it's not going to last, and it's not meant to last. It's basically to capitalize on this crazy social ideology that's out there, and an attempt to make a quick buck. It's not meant to further these kinds of characters within the genre.
And that's why it fails.
Exactly. That's why it has no legs. That's why, people are just losing faith in these comics because they don't even have faith in it themselves. Like, like you said, as soon as the shit hits the fan, they'll swap it out, they'll blame the readers, and then they'll move on to the next thing. Also, like what you were saying, Bob, about the Incredibles, the thing is, like, just from a storytelling or creative point of view, about these heroes, swapping these heroes out and doing all this stuff. Like, you're telling me that what happened to Peter Parker, that freak accident, can happen again to anybody? Like,
right.
Saying what happened, to Bruce Banner could just happen again. Like I never bought, like, even as a kid, when there was like Flash and Kid Flash, and then all of a sudden Wally West is with the same chemicals as Barry Allen was. Lightning comes through the window, smash. He becomes the Flash. Like it was just so convenient and so weird. Even as a kid, I was like, this isn't working. And then later they created the Speed Force, and they kind of tried to explain how it works in a better way. And I thought that was pretty genius.
Yeah.
Like the storyline.
Yeah, it's like, give credit where credit is due. But you can't do this because it, like you said, it cheapens the original. Every time you do this, it waters down and cheapens the original. So you're just saying, like, well, Peter Parker was never special. Bruce Banner was never special. Bruce Wayne was never special. Clark Kent. Anybody can do these things, and it just
it rings hollow.
Right.
It rings very hollow, and that's like. And that's another reason why so many people hated The Last Jedi, because the message in The Last Jedi is everybody can be a Jedi, everybody, which is wrong. Now, if they had altered that perception just slightly and said that, while not everybody can be a Jedi can come from anywhere. That's a different perspective. It's a small change, but it's a crucial change, and that's something that I think if you did that in comics, you could do a character like Miles Morales, okay? Because he existed in another reality. Now, I don't think. Now, I wouldn't have done his creation the way that they did it in the comics, where he got bit by the same spider, which is like, I mean, how the hell did that happen? But you can do it. And the other thing too is when he was first created, he wasn't preachy. He wasn't like literally. There's a page where there's a girl on social media saying like, oh my God, he's black just like me. And then Miles is upset with that. He's like, I don't want to be the black Spider-Man. I want to be Spider-Man. He's like, my race shouldn't matter.
They convoluted that anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
This current Spider-Man has Miles Morales' friends.
Yeah. And it's weird. But the thing is, the problem is that when you take a character like that and you shove him into the same universe, like right now, as it stands, there's 7 different Spider characters. Yeah, and it goes back to what I said before. When anybody can be Spider-Man, being Spider-Man isn't special.
Yes,
and it's almost. And I almost think that they've done this by design, because I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to break down this idea that people are special.
Mm-hmm.
It's the.
They did it with Batman. Trophy. The Bat family is insanely big. It's just like, all right, like okay, another Bat. Like okay, whatever. Yeah,
and it's this idea that they have where everybody has to be, everybody has to be considered exceptional. When the reality is most of us are just mundane, and there's nothing wrong with that. A normal person, an average person, can do good and great things, but we should not make the concept of someone being special and being great a negative thing, and that's what's happened.
We also have to remember who these characters were originally created for. They were created for young kids.
Yeah, to be inspirations.
Young kids. So when I read these things, there is something that is satisfying about that somebody has your back, like, because you kind of think maybe this could be real, like maybe these people do exist, and that there is a Batman right around the corner if something happens or whatever it is. So it brings you comfort. It brings you comfort in your small world that is you don't understand. You have no perspective. You don't understand half the stuff that's going on around you. But when you read these comic books, it all kind of makes sense, and you understand that there's somebody that has your back, that's going to fight the good fight, on your behalf.
A perception to live up to.
Yeah, and all those things. And so, that's what it was always designed for. And then most of us grew up, I think all four of us here and most of the people in chat, I think we grew up to be better people because of it, because, there was that example and you kind of did think like, oh man, Clark Kent, Superman is cool. Steve Rogers is cool. When you get older and you start going, well, the world really isn't like this.
It wasn't meant to be.
But you still have that inspiration. You still have that part of you from your childhood that remembers, the great sacrifice that this hero made in this storyline or whatever. And then, on some level, you would do it. Like I remember, what was it? It was I think it was Zack Snyder that said he doesn't believe in altruism. He doesn't think it exists. Yeah. He thinks that everybody's motivated by something else. So I think that's a really cynical, horrible way to look at the world. And also, I don't think it's true at all. I think there are people on 9/11. I don't think it was just their fucking job to run into that
building and die,
and do that. And there are also strangers that will give up their life to help another stranger.
Right.
Like, they'll throw somebody out of the street and get hit themselves, or there are things like this that happen time and time again. So don't tell me that there isn't that type of heroics that exist in the real world. People do these things all the time, and it's not just for money. It's not just it's their job. Everybody in the military isn't doing it for a paycheck. A lot of those guys are thinking, we're going to do the greater good. We're going to keep the country safe from outside invasion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That comes from the guys like people like him and Dan Slott that are moral relativists. Because to be a moral relativist, you have to reject the idea of altruism. And that's also why he and Schneider have this perception that heroes don't kill. You can't have a superhero who doesn't kill is completely outside the realm of possibility for them, and that comes from that perception that there is no such thing as altruism. That's why he had Superman killing Zod in the first movie.
And the reason Batman isn't the Punisher is because he has a moral code.
Right, and a lot of
he will not kill the Joker. He believes in due process
because to do so makes the Joker right. And again, it comes back to the idea that these characters are not meant to be us. They're meant to be better than us. They're meant to be examples to be followed. So while it may not be realistic for us as human beings, because as human beings we are incredibly flawed, these characters are not designed. Like I said, when you try to do these character deconstructions and things like that, and you try to break these characters down and turn them into us, that's when you break who they are, and that's when you break what comics are supposed to be.
Well, it's like the movie writers or whatever that wanted to come in and start making comic books more like TV series and in movies where you can do that with characters. But that's not what comic books are supposed to be about. You can have a wide range variety of different genres of books and all that, but like superhero books specifically should be what we grew up on them being, and that's what connected everybody, regardless of where you came from. People loved Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, whatever. There's a connection there to the quality of character that they were, because everybody probably aspires at some point to be that, right? You want to be heroic, you want to be brave, you want to protect others that can't protect themselves. You would like to have a moral code, right? That you would think that if you went up against some kind of hardship that you could get through it because you were so instilled with this moral code. And that's getting completely erased in comics now.
What you said is oh my gosh, you just hit it. It's the compromise of integrity. Like these new heroes that they're calling heroes are those guys that aren't that. They're completely not the heroes.
They're not heroes.
Right.
They're not heroes at all. Yeah, I mean, when you said that, I was like, oh shit. Aren't heroes at all. They're the window dressing. They're trying to market it that way, but they really aren't, and they're not aspirational at all. The aspirational part is the agenda aspect. It's like, oh well, they're this. Their gender is this. They're their race is this or whatever. And just by doing that, we're saying that they're good people. Like
Right.
if you have a black Batman, you can't question them, because also their narrative is black people flawed or white people flawed. Black people cannot be racist and they cannot be those things. So somehow
they have an innate nobility.
Right.
Yeah, what makes a superhero these days is someone that stands up for like the rights, for your rights of whatever you want to be. It's not necessarily the fact that they will run into a burning building or that they will sacrifice themselves for somebody else. It's that they grandstand for everybody else. Like that's the noble aspect of superheroes today.
It's the white savior, being a white savior.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Maybe that's why Smallville worked, because it was pre-ideals, and we were watching the ideals happen into who he was.
Yeah.
Which
I'll be honest,
and it worked.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Smallville, the first couple seasons, was you also got to see Clark Kent, and then you got to see Lex Luthor.
Oh yeah,
kind of come up together, and so then at times you saw that Lex Luthor wanted to be more like Clark, like he was inspired him,
because Clark is.
Yeah, you'd have Lex go against his dad, like, Dad, why are we doing this? Blah blah blah. So you got to see that Lex there were moments where he wanted to be a better person,
but he's not.
But he was just so doomed. Like they showed time and time again with that dad, with that lineage, with that situation that he was in, it was always going to play out the way it did. And that also gets into the parenting part, where you can't underestimate or throw, Martha and Jonathan Kent.
Their importance to who he was.
Yeah, because the reason Clark is the way he is because of those two people. And there's no mystery to why. It wasn't an inner city story. It wasn't, and it was Midwest. It was Midwestern Americana values. It was all those things that were instilled in this character. And that's why he's unquestionable.
And the thing was, even though the setting of it and everything, as you said, it's an example to be lived by anybody, and it's like, it may be impossible to strive to be as good and noble and decent as Superman, but it's the idea that you're going to try to do that. That's what was being still. But I really like I want to bring up Henry Bemis's comment here. We talked about my first comic book was the FF storyline.
Before you do that, real quick,
go ahead.
I got to jump off here because I got to get ready for Ott and stuff here in about 15 minutes. But I just want to say thanks for having me on. It's a great discussion. I could talk about this stuff for a long time. I really could. If I didn't have to leave, I wouldn't. But thank you so much for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I could jump on next time you guys do this.
Hey, no problem, Joe. And everybody go subscribe to Joe Sontag's YouTube channel. It's great. He does a lot of killer pro comic book stuff. Joe gets it. Joe remembers what it was like, when comic books, stuff like that. And it's
the good old days.
It's just a celebration of good, clean fun, So go subscribe to Joe's channel.
Thank you, guys. Sure. And back black and white. And I'll see you guys all later. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Joe. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. So he says right here, he talks about how the Fantastic Four storyline where Reed Richards was actually put on trial for saving Galactus's life. And he never, and like he says there, he didn't go in there and say, oh, and all this. He's like, no, I saved his life knowing what he was, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're saving a life. And later on, they created this idea of Galactus has a role to play in the universe. That's important. But that's not why Reed saved him. He saved him because he was dying.
Well, there's that nobility in all life is precious and whatever, and then also that it wasn't really Reed Richards' decision to make. You know what I mean? Then you start playing God, and then on some level, your morality is up, for question. If he let that person, Galactus die or whatever. I had a problem with the first Batman, the Chris Nolan one, where a Batman says, I don't have to save
I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. I had a real problem with that too.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck is that? That's some gray area bullshit. It's like,
again, moral relativists.
Right. And I just thought that was there was a couple things that overall I liked the Nolan films, but there were a couple things that I thought were really, really ass backwards and were not the Batman character at all. Because I think for Batman to successfully work, and I've said it on Pontificators before, is that I think you have to create a character that believes in due process. You have to have a character that believes in the law. And that's why Gordon is such an important character, and the Gotham PD and all of, you have Harvey Dent, you have the attorneys, you have all this stuff happening because he's part of a process. Batman's part of the process. He's not the be all end all. He's not Judge Dredd, he's not judge, jury, and executioner. He is just part of it. So he works side by side with Gordon to bring these guys in so they can try them, so they can go up, and due process can happen. And I think that is a lot of times overlooked with the character, but I think that's what the cool aspect of Batman is. And I used to, at times, I'd go back and forth like, oh, that's corny because, I'd like to see Batman just be dark and dispense justice out on the streets and stuff like that. But then you think it's not aspirational.
You become part of the problem if you do
right.
that, though.
Yeah, you become a villain. Yeah. Because
you look like you have something to say, Todd.
No, it's not as interesting either.
Yeah,
right, exactly. It's harder to do it the way he's doing it. Also, like the hero's journey, it should never be easy. It should always be tough. It should be like moral dilemmas, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I remember watching the Superman, George Reeves, was that the TV series?
Yeah.
And so Clark Kent is sitting at like an outside kind of deli or whatever, and he's sitting there, and then something happens right in front of him. He has to save this person's life. So he knows he can dart off, turn into Superman, and save this guy like that, right? But then he hears with the super hearing across town, something's happening at exactly the same time. So as a kid, I don't remember how he resolved it, but those are the moral dilemmas, right? Like now he has to choose, who does he save? So then the moral dilemma becomes like, oh shit, he has to play God, but he's also Superman. So then he gets to do something none of us can do. He gets to save both of these guys. I'm sure that's how it was resolved, but I don't really remember it. But these are the like cool storylines that you come up with, and it shouldn't be easy. It wasn't easy for Clark to do what he did, but he had to be more clever, and he had to remind himself that I'm Superman. I'll figure something out. I'll save both of these guys. And so then as a kid, you watch it and you go, oh man, that's very Superman-like. Yeah, that's exactly what you want this character to do,
Yeah, and it's I'm trying to remember the name of remember those one shots that Alex Ross did, and they were the big oversized ones, and I can't remember the name of one of Superman.
Each one had a different name.
Each one had a different name. I think
Hope.
I think it was was it Hope, or maybe it was Hope. But in that, it shows why Superman can't do why he can't solve every problem in the world. Because he decides, everyone's like, no, why don't you do all these things? You have the ability to do these things. Why don't you? And he decides, you know what? I'm going to try it. So he decides he's going to end world hunger. So like the government says, okay, that's great. We give you this giant piece of Kansas where you can plant grain. And he does this, and he goes to take the grain to it's a village in Africa, and the warlords are there waiting for him. And obviously Superman could wipe the floor with these guys. So he but the warlord doesn't fight him. He walks up and says, "Thank you for bringing this here. We appreciate it. We'll take over from here. We'll make sure that this gets to everybody." And Superman's like, and he destroys all their guns. But the warlord doesn't flinch. He's like, "Thank you. We'll do this." So then he realizes that nothing. He's like, the minute he leaves, he's like, he can't be there forever. Even someone like him with his power, he can't be there all the time. And the minute he leaves, he knows what's going to happen. They're going to take it. They're going to leave. So even someone like Superman has his limits, and he realizes that he can't make these decisions for mankind. Mankind has to make these decisions for themselves. They have to solve these problems. He can be an example to them, but he can't he can't fix these problems for them, and that's what makes the difference between being a hero and being a god.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, like you got to be careful with like real life events like 9/11 or wars and stuff like that. You can't really have like these characters go in and do what they could do, you know, based on the comic book reality. But you can't really have those things happen because, like you said, it cheapens the real life stuff, you know, the human stuff, what would really take place, you know, those type of events.
Peace on Earth, that's what it's called.
Yeah, it was the
Alex Ross one shot, the giant
for Africa thing was happening, right? With the Neil Adams cover on it. It was good stuff, and people in the past understood that you can't do that. But like that Superman situation that you said, Bob, what it does too is these warlords in Africa, it lets them know that somebody that's very powerful knows what they're doing. Like they're a blip on Superman's radar. So it's just kind of like locking your door at night or having an alarm or these type of things. If somebody wants to break in bad enough, they still can, but it's kind of a deterrent. You know what I mean? But it's not the be all end all. So if Superman could let these guys know that he could clean their clock in a heartbeat, you know, but he realizes that, you know, things have to play out the way they're going to play out. But if they get too out of control or if they get too uneven, he'll probably be there.
Yeah.
And he'll kick their asses.
But that's like that storyline and the perception at that time, like the classic idea of who Superman is and why he does what he does. You look at the new comic that's come out where Jonathan Kent is taking over Superman. He's complete 360. He's making demands of humanity and whatnot. He's making the mistake. But the current mindset of these creators is no, that's what you have to do. You know, it's the might makes right argument. Yeah, and that's why people are rejecting this idea, and that's why they're looking at this character like this is not a hero.
Exactly. Yeah, because they just don't act like a hero.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go on Pop. What is it?
Pop Van Zandt.
XP or whatever it is. Pop XP, and go hang out with Niall and the guys. And so, God, this is so much fun. And remember, hey, well, both of you guys were here, you know, for a while now. But the old Pontificators, sometimes we'd go 3.5 hours.
Yeah. I try to keep us on track for that, and sometimes I can feel the energy starting to flag sometimes. People in the chat are kind of going, okay, I think we're done.
Yeah, and then Bob actually just took control and would go, all right, let's wrap it up.
I was like, well, thanks for being here, everybody. But no, man, like it's easy to go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. We got Admiral Whack-Ass. Thanks for the stream, guy. Hey, no problem. Always good.
And by the way, guys, I dropped the link again to that tokenism and tokenization that Young Ripa did. It, like I said, he explains it better than I ever could.
Yeah, Young Ripa is, God, he is wise beyond his years, man. There are some takes that he, you know, he puts out there. He was on a John Stossel report. You know, it was cool to see. You know,
he was on Tim Pool as well.
Yeah, Young Ripa, you know, with John Stossel. You know, it's interesting. So yeah, go check that out. Paul says, love the conversation. Great show, guys. Yeah, you got it, man. We do this every week, and we love it. And so Pop XE. And let me just go real quick to Black and White again, if you will be so to indulge me on this.
You should.
So this is the reason for the season. We are 3 days out. We have 677 backers, 55,985. So we are so close to 56K, you guys. So the link is in the description. Black and White, Volume 2, Man vs. Machine in a world where law and order is often blurred to gray. Justice can only be black and white. And we just added a kick-ass Joe Bennett cover here. I am going to be inking this up on my YouTube live streams. and then the great Kyle Ritter is going to be throwing some of his magical colors over this thing. And yeah, so back this, we have it as its own tier, but it's also, you can get it as an add-on. All these books are, you can get them as add-ons. Even the original layout pages you can get. The only thing you cannot get in the add-on is the Great Capullo variants. So everything else you can get as an add-on. We have the Inco shirt. We have the, like I said, the layouts, the layout pages, and now the Joe Bennett. We have the Kenneth Racaport. Like I said, we got the.
You're making me choose between Joe and Ken, man. I'm like, damn it, come on, man.
Well, you
only got so much money, bro.
Yeah, well, yeah, the money thing, yeah, that is an issue. Yeah, and then you can get the second printing of Volume 1, the main book, and then you can get some of these featured. And the featured, you save a little bit of cash as far as shipping and things like that. So let me hit refresh here, see if we can get 56K. Boom, we got 56K, you guys. Thank you so very much. I'm hoping to hit that 60K by the end of these 3 days, and that will end the first 30, and then we are going to roll this over into a second 30, and we're going to have some cool exclusives, and that 72-hour line variant is going to be available, for 72 hours. So come by, check it out. The link is in the description. Thanks so much to everybody in the chat. Thank you for the super chats, and thanks, Bob. Thank you, Todd, and thanks to Joe Suntag. And you guys got YouTube channels too, right? So go subscribe.
Comic Book Bob. It's easy.
It's right there, man. It's not comic, but don't mistake. It's not comic book boobs.
Boobs.
It's
That's only when Clint's on.
Should be.
That's only when Clint's on.
Well, yeah, when Clint Helinski's on. Yeah, we miss Clint tonight. But yeah, thanks, guys, and take care. Enjoy your evening, and I'll see you over at Pop XE or XP. Yes, take care.